Hi, my name's Tim from United Baristas. Coffee shops are reopening and restarting, and as they do, the question of rent comes to the fore again. This is a follow-on conversation with Rob Fay from Shackleton Property. I caught up with Rob to talk about the March quarter rent moratorium, so we've caught up again to talk about his extension into June. Rob's got some really useful facts for you, but also we explore the direction of travel and look at what this might mean for the September quarter and into 2021. We hope that you find the information useful. Keep following United Baristas Restart for information for your coffee business. Hi Rob, how are you?
Hi Tim, very well, thanks.
Hey Rob, let's start out. Can you just introduce yourself? Who are you and what do you do?
Sure, I'm Rob Fay of Shackleton. We are a property consultant specialising in retail, restaurant and leisure property.
Now Rob, some people might know that you and I caught up 12 weeks ago as we talked about the March quarter rent. And in the lead up to March quarter, the government introduced a moratorium, meaning that the landlord basically lost their right to be able to evict the tenant for the non-payment of March quarter rent. And we're talking again today because that's been extended to the June quarter. Is that correct? Just unpack this for me.
Correct, yeah. As of Friday of last week, the moratorium was extended now to the 30th of September. So it takes care of the June quarter, whilst the last moratorium, which extended just past the March quarter, seemed to take place in a period of uncertainty. Now things are perhaps a little more certain, and we're going into a period where there's been no trade through the March quarter for most coffee houses. June will see perhaps some trade, though far reduced, and so landlords won't be able to call for forfeiture on the leases through this quarter.
So if you are a coffee shop proprietor, this week you've got to make a decision about whether you're going to pay your June quarter rent or not. So in a nutshell, should you pay it?
I think it's worth each tenant considering their circumstances in their own merit. For some tenants, if they're trading well enough to pay their rent, then the encouragement from the government is to pay their rent. But we'd always encourage a really open and transparent discussion between landlord and tenant. And the reality of the situation is there hasn't been trade in the last quarter. So should the rent be paid? Can it be paid? And going forward, perhaps a turnover rent for the next quarter to reflect trade would make sense for both parties.
If some shops will have not been able to have paid their March quarter rent and then also won't necessarily be in a position to pay their June quarter rent, so that's 6 months of unpaid rent, will shops have to pay that rent at some point in the future to their landlord?
Under the current government guidance and moratorium, yes, it hasn't been waived, it's been deferred or parked, because the moratorium means that landlords can't chase for these quarters. However, given the state of play of trade and the economy, it's quite hard, in my opinion, to see the government calling on those quarters to be paid anytime soon. I think the effects on the industry would be catastrophic. So I think it's quite likely that we'll see the moratorium pushed further out from September, or further measures to protect the tenant brought in at the same time.
So I guess the short of it is that if you don't pay your June quarter rent, it only helps to strengthen your hand in those discussions as you go forward, and you work out what your trading relationship and what your rent relationship might be across the coming quarter. Is that fair?
Well, I think what the really remarkable thing about the government extending this moratorium is that it does give the tenants a good hand of strength in their negotiations. By seeing it pushed further down the line, we're seeing perhaps the government favouring supporting the tenants over the landlords. Perhaps it means now that landlords are going to have to come to the table and compromise and open a discussion. If they want to see income before September, let's have a conversation about it.
So we've got a situation where we've got some clarity till September, and then we're expecting another government announcement in the lead up to the September quarter rent. Taking the current direction of travel, what would be your prediction for where we're going to get to across the September quarter and then into 2021?
In my opinion, I think it's very unlikely come the 30th of September that the government will just remove the moratorium. I think it seems from last week's announcement that they are protecting the tenants, perhaps more so than they're protecting landlords. Perhaps they're figuring that the impacts on the economy and unemployment would be incredibly harsh and tough if the retail and the hospitality industry is not protected. And so for the sustainability and the vibrancy of the high street, the government seems to be considering the tenants' welfare ahead of the landlords, which is refreshing.
So we find ourselves in really interesting times, because it's not often over that tenants have actually had their interest being front and centre before government. It's normally landlords that have that privileged position. So what might the future look like as we head into 2021?
Well, hopefully what will come from this is a positive, that it's a far more balanced playing field where it is a true partnership, and the leases reflect that. So perhaps this is a time for reforming of the Landlord and Tenant Act. The last edition of that was 1954, so almost 65 years ago, and we're within a retail industry which is incredibly fast moving. So a new set of laws from the Landlord and Tenant Act would be fantastic for the industry. Perhaps we'll see reform too of the use classes order and of business rates entirely. A reboot of all of those things would be very much welcomed. And if they meant modern leases on that truly reflect trade and protect both parties, perhaps the abolishment of upward-only rent reviews, etc., well, that has to be good for the high street and for the industry.
These would be some very exciting developments, and also a review of the use class system that would provide maybe greater clarity and opportunities for coffee shops, which fall in a rather grey area at times between A1 and A3, would be really interesting as well. Both you and I have been talking to people over recent weeks about opportunities in the current market, and some people are actually looking to expand or grow their businesses by taking on new sites. What types of leases are available right now?
So we've just really seen the tip of the iceberg, in my opinion. We've seen some softening of lease terms, some slight rent cuts, greater rent freeze and capital contributions on offer. We've seen some lease rents now moving over to turnover start. So it's starting to happen, but it hasn't really filtered down into the industries yet. I think September, December and March, we'll see the results of what's happened to the economy over the last quarter and probably this quarter, and that's when there should be some pretty extraordinary deals on offer.
Rob, it's always great to talk to you. Thank you ever so much for your insights. And look, let's get you back again in 12 weeks' time as we look forward to see what's happening in the September quarter.
Great, thank you.
Okay then, ciao, ciao.